How can you quickly modulate from a major key to its relative minor in a heartbeat? That's what we're going to look at today in Dr. Doug's Daily Tips for How to Write Great LDS Church Music. Before we dive in, at the time of this recording, it is March 21st, 2022. Today is the birthday of the greatest composer of all time, Johann Sebastian Bach. Happy 337th birthday to the master. And because it's his birthday week, we're going to spend some time in the one hymn that we have in our hymnal that's by Bach, by J.S. Bach, which is hymn 197, O Savior, Thou Who Wearest a Crown. There are many lessons in this hymn. So I'm going to take it a piece at a time and have several episodes of these tips videos on this particular hymn because it's just that good and it deserves our attention. All right, let's dive in. So today we're going to look at this very first line, and lines 1 and 2 are identical, so we're covering basically half the hymn, but really looking at one particular thing, which is a quick little modulation from D major to B minor. Okay, so we begin the piece, Bach begins the piece in the key of D major. Now, the melody, which I've outlined in blue notes, is not a normal D major kind of a melody. It almost feels a little bit more like it belongs in B minor. Just have a listen. So one of the reasons this works so well is because Bach is already working with a tune that highlights a lot of the notes in B minor. Okay, we have a B, we have F sharp, several F sharps, we get the high D, and then we end on B. So it really helps that the melody is using many notes of the B minor triad. Right, so you may, if you're taking a tune that already exists and you're trying to do this quick modulation from major to minor, try to find a tune that has elements in it already of the relative minor. That will make your life much easier. Okay, so Bach begins in D major. I have a one chord here in D major, and we continue in D major until we cadence right here, another D chord, or one chord. But if you zoom ahead and look at the end of this staff over here, we clearly have a cadence in the key of B minor. This is an F sharp chord, F sharp, dominant 7, resolving to B minor. In other words, a 5-7 going to 1 in the key of B minor. But it's within the first phrase. How did he get there? That's what this rectangle, this red rectangle is around the chord that does the magic. Okay, so look at that chord. What notes do we have? Well, we've got a C, we've got two C's, we've got an A sharp, and we've got an E. So if we put those notes in snowman form, which is basically the lowest common denominator, we have the A sharp, the C sharp, and the E. That is a diminished chord. A sharp, C sharp, E. And that diminished chord being built on A sharp, the A sharp is very important. The A sharp is just a half step away from B. In other words, it's a leading tone. It's the leading tone of B. So when Bach gets to this little halfway point here, and he pauses on the 1 in D major, we have 5-1 in D major, then he takes what was D major and alters it slightly to become A sharp diminished. A sharp diminished. How does he get there? Well, let's zoom back in. The tenor is on A, and it goes up a half step to A sharp. And then it goes up a half step again, as leading tones do, to B. Okay, so that's the first and most important way that he goes from D major quickly to B minor. This D major chord, the A goes up to A sharp, and then B minor. We're suddenly in B minor. The A sharp is the real magic. But there's a secondary level of magic happening in the bass line. The bass line on the D, the root of the D major chord, steps down, contrary motion to the tenor, to the C sharp, and then the C sharp continues down to the B. So we get D, C sharp, B. It's like 3 blind mice in B minor. Okay, so we get the D major chord, and then the D of the bass and the A of the tenor go out to C sharp and A sharp by step. Very smooth move by step. And then by step again they go to octave Bs. Okay, so those are the first two main components of how we quickly get from D major to B minor. The other is in the alto. In a similar way, the alto starts on a D, part of the D major chord, then it steps a nice smooth step upwards to the A, part of the A sharp chord, and then it goes right back to the same D. So we have this kind of neighbor tone feel, which is very smooth writing, very smooth voice leading. It's not a big leap. It's just very carefully, degree by degree, line upon line, precept upon precept, we get from D major to B minor. So once again, here's the alto. As the bass and tenor wedge outward to C sharp and A sharp, the alto goes D, E, and then back to D. All right. Now the soprano is not necessarily modulatory. It's much more of an emotional jump. We pause on the F sharp, and then as the chord begins to change to that A sharp diminished, big leap of a fifth. Ta-dum! That's the highest point of the entire hymn, and it's the high D. But we get to the high D once again by step. We had another C sharp. Remember this C sharp down here? And instead of that C sharp going up, that C sharp went down to B to counter the upward motion of the tenor. And now this other C in the soprano does another half step, just like the tenor went up a half step from A sharp to B. The soprano goes a half step from C sharp to D, as the alto is going down to D. So we have two roots of B minor in the left hand and 2/3 of B minor in the right hand. That's a slightly unusual doubling, but it's very effective here because the A sharp diminished chord leads it there by stepwise motion. If you look at every one of those voices in the A sharp diminished chord, they go to the next chord in stepping motion. The soprano up by step, the alto down by step, the tenor up by step, the bass down by step. Okay, so we get to the end of that phrase on the D major chord, and then A sharp diminished with a leading tone to B, and very smooth stepping motion to B minor. And then we get more B minor. Ooh, sorry. Officially end the phrase in B minor. So listen to that whole phrase and hear the change chord. Magical how within 4 measures we can start in D major, have a cadence in D major, one chord on one beat twists the dial, We move in very smooth stepwise motion to B minor, and then we cadence in B minor. Magical Bach. He's the master. Okay, that is your gem for today, the first of several Bach gems from Hymn 197 that we will look at this week. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you get all the updates of when these YouTube videos appear, and head over to latterdaymusiversity.com to get some more free tips. You can get my 10 commandments of how to write warm, fuzzy LDS church music. It's a 24-page report that has lots more secrets you can enjoy for free. Come back again, and we'll keep going with Hymn 197 and the Bach gems. Happy birthday, Bach!